we see what happened last time out against Spurs?
In my little McGinn montage that I've created, winning the ball off Harry Kane. He's done Son, he's done Højbjerg. He's also done Højbjerg again. Again, he's done another one. I think that's Son when he barged him off the ball. He then went on to take the ball off another defender. Picked up the ball in the middle of the park. Absolutely ran rings around Richarlison all game. That's Son on the floor again. Again, McGinn running rings around somebody. Harry Kane on his face. So yeah, I mean,
eating grass, mate. Eating grass.
The last couple of minutes, McGinn, last man tracking back, winning the ball, and then another last-ditch tackle in the box. So, oh yeah, absolutely fantastic from John McGinn, and I just felt like we needed a bit of context just for the for the media world to see.
I just hope that when this episode's released, that people will just hear the music that you've been playing in my ear. Because if not, this little montage going to look really weird.
The clown soundtrack.
I just
I'm sorry, I'm crying here. You know.
I just felt like that music just suited Spurs defending. It's fair to say Spurs have improved somewhat since last season. But I thought I'd just bring that back for the memories of our last experience against Spurs because I love that episode I did. It was so funny. Welcome, Justin, to our match preview. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm even better now. That's really cheered me up. That was funny. I remember that well. Great. Clip that is.
Right. We've had our international break. We have recouped, and we are raring, ready to go. Unai has been in Milwaukee watching the Milwaukee Bucks. We've Wes Edens, so that looks really cool on social media. The whole gang was there, so I imagine that was a real good insight for Emery to see how sort of like Milwaukee Bucks operate, etc. So yeah. Let's go then. Spurs, big game. Big game this is. There's no two ways about it. We can't sugarcoat this anything other than saying it is a massive, massive game. Not only is it a massive game for Aston Villa, it's a massive game for Spurs because if Aston Villa can win this game, then I imagine we will go inside the top four. We'll overtake Spurs. And there's massive incentive on that front. And there's massive incentive as well to set the record straight with our away form as well. You know, we're going to a team that are currently above us, a team that have played pretty well so far this season. And it's a challenge. And like I said in the episode I did on Sunday about, are we the real deal? Well, we're soon about to find out whether we are or not, because of the fixtures that we've got coming up. And can we sort of grasp this opportunity? And can we go into form going into this heavily congested December period? So, Justin, what are your initial thoughts then ahead of Spurs?
Yeah, looking forward to this one. Feels like the first real proper test this season. We've had some difficult games. But obviously the two early defeats, we sort of suffered. We hadn't got into our stride then, had we? And, the season was just sort of started. Everyone was feeling each other out. Whereas this now feels like, the table's now looking fairly established. It takes a lot now to either drop away, a real drop of form to drop away, or it takes a real good run of form to push yourself up the table. So, we're there on merit. We're in that top five on merit. Spurs are there on merit as well. They've had a fantastic start to the season, going 10 unbeaten. I think their best start ever. So it feels, alongside the other two big games coming up, we got that this is one of the real testers for us now, and I think we're ready for it. This is where we are now as a team and as a club, and I think Emery, he will be absolutely relishing it going to a big club like Spurs, who are doing really, really well on a par with us. Our start is as good as theirs now, isn't it? So yeah, it's going to be a really, really exciting game, and it's going to be the first visit for me. I'm going to the new Spurs stadium. I've been many times to the old White Hart Lane, so I'm looking forward to seeing the stadium as well. But as a club, I think we should be relishing this game on Sunday. It's a really mouth-watering one to get back into action after the international break.
Definitely. So what we're going to do, we're going to preview the game on this episode, and then on the predicted lineup, we're going to go in-depth tactically. We're going to have a look at Spurs more in depth. That'll be coming out tomorrow, and then we'll predict Aston Villa's lineup and what we want to expect. So the tactical element of our content this week will be on the predicted lineup. But initial thoughts on Ange Postecoglou. He has done very, very well so far. He has established a style of play, a way of playing. He has recruited pretty well in Maddison. Van de Ven was looking very, very good. So on that front, I've been thoroughly impressed. I've been thoroughly impressed with their system and the way that they've been playing. And yeah, they're looking pretty good. We've got Maddison out, Basuma out, Romero out, Richarlison out, Van de Ven out, which are all big players. And I think if we look at Spurs before the Chelsea game, they were playing very, very well. They were attacking well. They were defending well. The keeper's been absolutely amazing. Vicario, he's been in sublime form. Some of the saves he's been pulling off have just been like worldies left, right and centre. And before that, I was pretty impressed with them. And I was sort of subconsciously in my head thinking, when it gets challenging, we're about to see how good they are and where the injuries come in. And that first setback, we're about to see, a bigger test and how they can react to that. They lost to Chelsea and they lost to Wolves. So, they're not in the greatest of form now, coming off the back of 2 losses, with those injuries and those suspensions that they've got, to the team of how well they've been playing. This is now a different Spurs that Aston Villa are going to be playing. There's no two ways about it. It's a completely different Spurs side to the one pre-Chelsea. And I think what we're going to get in on this episode with some of the still images, you're going to start to see patterns on how Aston Villa can really hurt Spurs. But Justin, what are your thoughts on Ange, and what are your thoughts on some of the players that they've got missing for this game?
Yeah, I follow the Scottish leagues. Well, you follow Rangers and Celtic. A lot of English fans do, and it's interesting. And he did a good job up there. Yes, we know it's a very limited league, and there's normally only 2 teams that can win things. But I really liked him up there. And then the big question when he got the job at Spurs was, could he replicate anything like what he did up there down in England, which is a much harder thing to do, as we saw when Steven Gerrard arrived from Rangers to us. And he's been a breath of fresh air for me. He's probably my second favourite manager in the league behind Unai. I've loved his press conferences. I've loved his candour. I've loved the way he talks to the press. He's very open. He's very honest. He's no nonsense. He's got a nice aura around him. And I think that's harnessed the Tottenham squad. I think it's what they desperately needed. Losing Harry Kane, which was inevitable in the summer eventually. Could have gone really badly wrong for him, especially if they'd have picked the wrong manager to go in and try and pull it all together. But I think the sort of combination of the way he goes about things and the money he's had to spend with the Kane sale, I think he's done really, really well in the transfer window. And he's sort of created a really strong spine to this Spurs team now. The goalkeeper like Yusuf Vicario, Van de Ven, the centre half. And then he's revitalised Basuma, who was looking lost there last season. And then he's dropped Maddison in, sort of in the 10 role. And then Son's now sort of taken up the Harry Kane role up front. So, and players are in and around as well have looked really, really good. And they got off to a good start. And that's all you need sometimes. You can sort of get off off the back of one or two good results, and suddenly you start motoring, don't you? And you harness that early energy in the season, and they've just gone on and on and on and on. And they have hit a little bit of a brick wall recently, so it's going to be interesting to see what he does on Sunday. And you are right, this isn't the Spurs team of 2 or 3 weeks ago. They're going to be missing some really, really key players, and maybe in years gone by, we might have gone in a bit blasé with different managers. But again, and I'll repeat this every single game, we will not be blasé going into Sunday's game. Unai will know exactly what he's facing. He'll know they won't be as strong as they can be personnel-wise, but that doesn't mean they won't be very well set up and they won't cause us problems, because they've still got some very, very good players. I watched them against Wolves and they did pretty well, to be fair. It was only a real bit of a smash and grab right at the end that sort of took the points for Wolves in that game. So yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. But I like what he's done. They've still got some very good players. It looks like Son, although he had a bit of a knock on international duty, is going to be fine. So they're going to be a threat, aren't they? So we've got to be on our toes. Our way forward, as we know, isn't as good as we'd like it to be. So this is an opportunity now to go and hopefully turn our away form round.
Definitely. We'll get onto the away form in a second then. So if we have a look at the head-to-head in the Premier League era, Spurs have got 24 wins. Villa have got 17. We've got 7 away wins and they've got 14 home wins. The current form guide looks like this. Aston Villa are in slightly better form going into this with our win against Fulham. And then, like we said earlier, you've got the 2 losses for Spurs against Wolves and Chelsea. And the previous meetings, I showed you at the start, the last previous meeting, that went very, very well for Villa. We've done the double over them last season. We had our 2-0 win, which was a brilliant away performance under Unai Emery. And then we've got a 4-0 loss in there. That was pre-Emery, and that was pretty much standard practice in this fixture, really. Before that, we'd sort of got Engels when we first got promoted. And I'm just so glad that memory is just kind of evaporated from my mind now. But Justin, you mentioned one thing, and I spoke about it on my episode on Sunday. But what do you make of the away form then? Is it concerning or not?
Not at the moment, it's not. I mean, the main reason for that is, and there's not been more spoken about, I suppose, is because the home form is so excellent. So it has taken the pressure off the away results, hasn't it? So, there hasn't been as much need to go and win away from home because we're just winning everything at home. But having said that, if our home form can continue as it is and we can start becoming better away, then we're in a phenomenal position, aren't we? We're one of only 2 teams to be unbeaten, not only just unbeaten at home, but win every single home game. But when you look at that away table, realistically, one more win and we're in that potentially the third best away form, isn't it? So it's, getting away wins in the Premier League is notoriously difficult to do. And, if you can somehow start winning away games, then you are going to push yourself into some serious contention for some serious results and a really good finish in the Premier League. So whilst it doesn't look great on paper, 7 points, it's not the end of the world at the moment, and it's something that I'm pretty sure they'll be looking to rectify over the next sort of 5 or 6 games. And we've had some tricky away games, haven't we, as well? The Liverpool game was really difficult. So it's something we can do something about, starting hopefully against Spurs.
Definitely. So we're going to fly through some of the other graphics that we normally put on show. This next graphic is really impressive from Spurs' point of view. The blue is where Spurs utilise the ball and work with their style of play. The grey are contested, which means it's neither Spurs or the opposition who are dominant. And then the red shows where the opposition teams are dominant. And I imagine that's inside their own box. But, Spurs have been pretty commanding with their style of play. On this graphic, you can see whether they are slow and intricate like Manchester City or whether they are fast and direct. So you can see that Luton are more direct in their style of play, and then Aston Villa are sort of edging towards the slow and intricate. We're averaging a passing sequence of around 4. Spurs are 4.4. So we're in and around Spurs kind of with our playing style as well. And I think this is a really interesting graphic on how it shows, how teams play. You've got West Ham there that are really good on transition, another team that are really good on transition. You've got Nottingham Forest. So it really does show that different comparisons on each team's styles as well. So we'll move to Aston Villa's graphic now. So I'll try and bring you this each week because this graphic does change each week. And I imagine come the end of the season, you will get a broader picture after 38 games. Aston Villa, you can see we're the blue. So we're very, very comfortable playing out from the back. We're comfortable in central midfield. And then we can go out wide. We've got our threat with Luca Dean and we've got Bailey out wide or Moussa Diaby running into that corner as well. Like I say, the grey is contested, so it's neither Villa or the opposition. It's neutral. And then the opposition against Villa are in the red as well. So if we go back to the Wolves game now, so take ourselves to a couple of weeks ago. I know it seems a long time ago. And these were the stats from the game that Spurs had against Wolves. They had 58% possession. Justin, you spoke earlier about Spurs playing well in this game. I think it showed a bit of weakness for me in the way in which Villa are going to be able to exploit Spurs. And we're going to see some still images in a second. Wolves had 17 shots, 4 on target, as opposed to Spurs' 6 shots to 2 on target. So that shows that Wolves were pretty active in this game. And this is how Spurs lined up in that game. So you've got Royal, Davies, Dyer and Porro. In the middle, you've got Højbjerg, Bissouma and Sarr. And the front three, you've got Brennan Johnson, Heung-min Son and Kulusevski. If we take a look at their average positions, like I say, we will go into a bit more detail on tomorrow's episode. But briefly, what you can see is you can kind of see what Spurs are trying to do with their system. They're playing with a 2 at the back, with Bissouma sitting in that holding role, the number 8. And their system is all about inverting both fullbacks into central areas. So number 12, you can see he's inverting into that central area, and they will invert and offer a threat straight down that pitch as well, also in those attacking areas. And you can see this perfectly on the passing network. Emerson Royal, the left back, look where he is. He's in that advanced central area. You've got Pedro Porro also in an advanced central area. And then you've got the front three of Johnson, Heung-min Son and Kulusevski. And it's Bissouma who's sitting in that sort of pivot there. They're not afraid to have Emerson Royal or Pedro Porro making up that pivot either. So centrally, we have to be very wary of this. But we'll go into this more tomorrow. And then you can see Wolves' passing network and where they got some joy in this game as well. This is a pretty good passing network. You've got Lamina in a central pivot there, but you've also got width going out wide as well. So, Justin, thoughts on what I've just explained?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting the way they use their fullbacks. We tend to sort of, one goes forward, the other one sort of sits in and creates that 3, or Kamara drops in to make that 3. So we're always pretty well set when we go forward that we've got that cover at the back, where it seems that they're happy to sort of rely on the 2 centre-halves with 1-6 with Bissouma just sitting in. So there seems to be a bit of options there and a bit of possibility for us to maybe exploit them down the wings. Spurs is it's a big old wide pitch as well, isn't it? So I think there should be plenty of opportunities. I mean, for us to get at them and create chances, and especially based on the amount of chances that Wolves created. When I say I think they did well, I think what I mean by that is to sort of put a bit more meat on it, is considering the players that they had missing in the game and they've been on such a good run. I think they adapted quite well to the game, and as I say, it was only really a few minutes at the end that they threw it away. But yes, Wolves did have a lot of joy in that game, so it's something we need to really take a lot of positives from, and they're coming off the back of 2 losses, so they're going to be really, really eager to get back on the winning track again. So they're not going to. I don't see them sitting back. I really don't. Interesting the stat one where the passing where we sort of play very similar style to them as well. Will they have the patience that we show? We know that there's plenty of times where we'll just sit with the ball at the back and wait for the opposition to come on to us. So it could be a game of sort of who blinks first. Who's going to make that attacking run first? Who's going to commit further forward? Who's going to commit more players to try and get forward? Are we just going to sit back in and wait for them to come to us, and then we'll just hit them on the break with Diaby or Bailey, Watkins? It's going to be another fantastic and very interesting tactical game, isn't it, to sit and watch? And, the in-game, I think in-game is going to be good as well, the way that maybe it's changed as the game progresses. You might even see changes after 10, 15, 20 minutes. We're not averse, or Emery's not averse to sort of tweaking things as soon as that. So it's going to be very interesting, but I'm fully confident we can go there and get a result. I really am.
You mentioned who's going to blink first. Whose high line is going to blink first? It should be the question. And this is very, very interesting. And I've got to admit, Spurs' high line pre-Chelsea was very, very good. I was very impressed with Spurs' high line. And there is one reason for that. And it was the turn of speed of Van der Ven. So many times Van der Ven was bailing them out. Oh, I think that's the term you could use, because the high line had been breached, and he was the one with that blistering speed on that recovery who was sort of saving them, basically. So with him out, this is an area I think Villa are really, really going to look to try and exploit. Here you can see an image of the game against Chelsea, where Chelsea's tactic was the ball over the top pretty much all game. So many occasions in this game where Son was still being that willing runner. If only they'd have dropped off slightly, even dropped off to there, I think, that's still a high line there. But this was ridiculous, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on this? With 9 players.
Yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it? Because once you go down to 9 players, it's almost impossible, isn't it, to try and get anything out of the game. So I suppose in a way you could commend him for still trying to condense the pitch, and I suppose the thought process is if you can get your defenders up to the halfway line, it then would naturally push whatever players you've got left into more attacking positions, and they did. If my memory serves me correctly, I think that the plaudits they got was for trying to do just that, trying to somehow get something out of the game. And I think they did create a few chances playing that way. But obviously, with 9 men, you're very, very susceptible to being hit on the break, and you only need 1 or 2 decent balls through, which proved their undoing. But again, I think it was very brave. I mean, with 9 men, normally you see at the team just say, right, we can't win this now. Let's just not try and concede 7 or 8, And yes, it did go wrong. They lost by 4 in the end. But I think, as I say, I think maybe commend him a little bit for just not giving up on the game when you've got 2 players off the pitch. But yes, it was a bit suicidal. But yeah, there's 2 ways of going about it, and he decided to think, sod it, let's try and go for it. So it's interesting. I think that just shows the mentality of the manager, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So an area of concern for me, if I had to have a concern especially, would be the front 3 of Spurs. And this was their goal against Wolves. We've got Kulusevski, who gets to the byline, gets the crossing, and you've got Brennan Johnson, who's making that run to that back post. So I think both fullbacks have really got to be aware that if it does get to that 1v1 scenario, that we've got another player who can come in and sort of just, make a 2v1. And I think, John McGinn and our players that are playing in that sort of wide midfield area, are pretty good at doing that. But there was areas that I think Villa can exploit. And we've showed on that graphic of where you've sort of got Bissouma, the one that's just sitting in there holding. And the areas for me are sort of in behind when both of those fullbacks go forward. There was time and time again in this game where they were getting turned on transition, which enabled Wolves to have 4v3 or 3v3. So I think if Villa can sort of bypass that midfield and then turn them on that transition, then we've got pace to exploit it as well. Again, we've got another 3v3 here. Again, once you've bypassed Bissouma in that role, Bissouma's not going to be playing in this game. But once that's been bypassed in there as well, they are a little bit light. There's a lot of space. There's a lot of gaps in these type of areas. So that should give Villa a little bit.
Luke,
sorry.
Do you think there's a go back to that one? Sorry, do you think there's a case to be made that because they've had such a good start to the season that they are overconfident in a way? The way they play has sort of gleaned so many good results and positive results, so many wins, not lost any games. That they're playing in this sort of flamboyant style of going forward, and all of a sudden they've been hit by a couple of defeats. Whereas you might have to really think about changing the way they play to an extent, because if they do keep getting picked off, if they do keep overcommitting down the flanks, like you said, the way the two fullbacks sit in, if they are leaving just two centre halves and they're not their two best centre halves either, especially against the pace that we've got. I mean, with the greatest respects to Wolves, our front three are back against theirs, and their front three caused them tons and tons of problems. So, in a way, if they play that way against us, we really could go to town on them if they're not careful. So I do wonder whether he will decide to maybe tweak their style on Sundays, and we might see something we haven't seen from them yet this season.
Yeah, you are right in what you're saying, because what this type of system does leave is it leaves the back two isolated. And like what you've just said, it's Dyer and Ben Davies in there. There's not a lot of pace in there. So I think,
especially without that cover of Bissouma, who's played so well this season. He's back to almost his best of what we saw before the pre-Tottenham move. He's been shielding that back four in a really fantastic way. So I would think Højbjerg will come back in there and try and play in there. So very interesting to see what not just the formation they pick, but the way they set up.
Yeah, and one player who, we don't need to be told about Son because he's got hat-tricks against us. He's ripped us apart numerous times. So I don't really need to tell you how good he is because we've actually seen it at Villa Park. But a little bit of an area of concern for me would be if Aston Villa are pushing forward and we are, trying to go for it. If you leave Son in these type of areas, and he's always available in this type of area, he's sitting and working in and around here and just dropping a little bit deeper and coming away from central defenders, it can do serious damage in these positions. And Wolves were fortunate that he didn't put this one away, but we've really got to be aware and just make sure we are fully aware of Son and his positioning and on transition the threat that Son can have. But then I highlighted two other areas, and this goes to what me and you were saying, Justin, about this defence. The runner in behind, the runner coming through two players. This was the first goal against Spurs, and it was Sarabia who managed to time his run perfectly, split those two players. No one ran with him. They were both static, the defenders, and he was able to score from this instance. And then again, when the game went late on, it was another run from Lamina who split those two players there, and he was able to get that shot off and score the goal. So defensively, I would say Aston Villa really should be looking to target Spurs' defence with a lot of movement and just work getting into the right areas. And I think we can do really well in this game, Justin. I think it's a game that I don't want us to be fearful of. I want to see Villa go in there, doing a job and getting the job done, because I believe in us and I really do think that we can do it. I think on our day, I think we're a match for anybody. And
Totally, yeah.
looking forward to it.
I think
Looking forward to it.
looking like you're saying that those areas you've highlighted and what we've seen with the way they overcommit and the players, the personnel that we'll have on Sunday, it leaves us, our attacking threat not only with Watkins, who can isolate and keep the two centre halves occupied on his own. That's without a Diaby and maybe a Bailey, and then you throw into the mix a late on rushing John McGinn, who's in almost arguably some of the form of his life at Villa at the moment, the way he's scoring goals and creating and running havoc through everything. And, add to that, Douglas Luiz maybe pushing on an extra 5 or 10 yards, then they will really have their work cut out, keeping us really quiet and trying to get themselves forward and trying to create things themselves. So I definitely, their front card is their front three, isn't it? Brennan Johnson, Son and Kulusevski, as you say, probably be the front three on Sunday. So, our back four's good, isn't it? We've got a good keeper. The two shielding sixes will do their jobs as they do week in, week out. And then it's up to the front four to sort of wreak havoc. And I think the game will be won. I think we are better. I think our attackers are better than their defenders, whereas I think their attackers are on the par with our defenders, and I think we can keep them quiet. And I don't think they'll be able to keep us quiet. I think that's where we win the game.
I think I remember Emery when he was on about the Burnley game, and he was talking about possession, and he was mentioning that, maybe we weren't going to have all of the ball. And then we sort of played in that sort of counter-attacking dynamic style, didn't we, when it was the 3-1 game? I kind of feel like a similar sort of trait to this game would be that, because I think what areas can we really exploit and hurt Spurs? And if they're coming on to us and having a decent amount of possession, we've shown from the images the gaps that they leave. And we've got two players who are electric. They're so fast and dynamic. And you maybe add Bailey into that mix as well at some point in this game. We've got a lot of areas that we can really hurt them. And I spoke about this, numerous times this season about our actual style and the fact that it doesn't have to be the same every week. We don't have to play the same every week. We've seen already this season that when we're at home and, we're having all of the ball and we maybe concede and it's 2-1, and then the opposition are having a bit of a go at us, and we change our style, go a little bit more direct, play on the counter-attack, 3-1, job done, game wrapped up. So our style can evolve, and I think that's really something that that really, really does excite me. So we're going to finish the episode off, Justin, and we're going to talk, because I think this is fitting for both teams. So if there's some Spurs fans watching, or we can talk about high lines, the Arsene Wenger offside rule. Now, have you heard about it? Have you seen it or not?
Is this where clear daylight, is it? Or the feet?
Yeah, right.
Clear
So
daylight,
this would probably really affect Villa and Spurs, because we both play with a high line. We both use VAR to our advantage. We both keep it very, very tight. So even if an opposition team scores against Villa, it's always checked by VAR with a fine tooth. It's so precise, isn't it? So this would really affect both of us. Arsene Wenger has come up with a rule that may come into fruition in a couple of years' time. And it's going back to the old school daylight. So as you can see on the top, the yellow is the attacker and the white and red is the defender. So within this rule, this goes onside, right? But the bottom one, where there is clear daylight between the attacker's foot and the defender's arm or knee or whatever, would be deemed as offside. What are your thoughts, Justin?
I think it's ridiculous. I do. I genuinely think it's ridiculous. The two reasons. One, just go back to that graphic, sorry. I might be able to explain what I mean better. Basically, what I mean by that is, so if this rule comes in, then it immediately gives a huge advantage to the forward, because he hasn't got to basically stay level with the defender. So how do you then coach your defenders? You know, if they drop a bit deeper, then the forward just has another yard. So the forward can always effectively stay ahead of the defender. So where are you defending? You're defending your 6-yard box. It leaves no sort of room for error for a defender. If they've got a yard on you constantly, all you've got to do is make sure your hand, your back arm is touching the defender. You haven't got to be fouling him, and then you're wrong side, aren't you? And my other problem with it is, you look at that line on there. Now, what happens if his hand is a millimetre further forward? We're going to have exactly the same arguments on a match day, because where do they draw the line?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I know your hand is probably not classed as a part of play, so they'd have to go off your knee or something. There would still be an element of where do you draw your line? Now, from the distance the cameras are away, how on earth can you draw a line? It's definitively exactly the same as with the problem we have now. Is they moan about, is that line, is it right? Can you see through two players? There's a melee of players, especially on a free kick or corner. Somebody's flying the free kick in. Sorry, on a free kick. Where do you draw the line? And people are saying, well, that he looks like his knees just slightly ahead. And you imagine if one player's one side of the pitch, and not next to each other, you've got the fullback who's playing the left winger on side. How on earth can you tell to the accuracy that he's got clear daylight? And there's not, it's exactly the same problem. All you're doing is you're changing the argument, aren't you? You're not solving anything. You're just making it far more advantageous to the forwards. And yes, we want to see goals, more goals. But how many goals are you going to see if the forwards?
But you know
got
what?
a wide advantage all the time.
Do you remember when Wenger spoke about reducing the time of the matches? Because Wenger's theory is he wants to see the ball in play more, and he wants to see more goals. So I can imagine this is why he's come up with that one, because, like you're saying, it gives the attacker a massive, massive advantage. And it got me thinking about VAR when I saw this image, and I wanted to talk about it because we start the topic and the comment section finishes the conversation off with their thoughts. But I do think there needs to be a change, and there needs to be something changed within the offside rule. Now, I don't know what it is, but I'm going to take you back to an image that, this is where I think the offside rule, something needs to change. And it's to do with this image as well.
I knew he was going to bring that up. I knew he was going to bring that up.
But the reason why I've brought this image up is because the attacker is walking in a different direction to where the goal is. Do you see where I'm coming from here?
Yeah, totally, yeah.
So the attacker's not gaining an advantage here because he's walking in the opposite direction. So what are your thoughts on VAR at the minute then with the offside? Are you currently happy with it, or do you think something does need to change with it?
I don't think anybody's ever been happy with the offside rule. The rule was there to stop goal angling, basically. And that's from time immemorial, ever since football's began. Ever since that rule come in, it's to stop people just standing on the goal line, tapping them in. There's never going to be a way of solving this issue. There just isn't. All we're trying to do with VAR is making it supposedly easier to find out whether you are or you aren't offside. Now, whether you have a clear daylight, a yard, level, whatever metric you choose to judge whether you're offside or not from, you've still got the problem that there might be 9 out of every 10, very easy to tell, which is still like that now. You can tell when you see that image, if you know straight away whether you're off or not. It's the ones that are very, very close to call that all the problems come from. Now, whether you are clear daylight, there are still going to be those times when there's such a minute gap in between. People can say, really? Is the clear daylight there? How can you tell when you've got a left back and a right wing? That's what I'm saying. So you're never going to stop that debate and that argument. Now, even before VAR, you'd have a still on Match of the Down the Night and they'd go, that was just offside, but the line out didn't call it. For me, yes, it was annoying, but you just accepted it because you got a few went for you in the season, a few went against you in the season. And you still see that now. You still see that goal, the first goal was given in the last Europa League game that was disallowed. It was proven afterwards that it should have been given. So what's the difference that you've got VAR or not? That was not given on the day. The ref could, without VAR, the ref could have disallowed it, and then afterwards could have said, actually, that was a goal. So you're not eradicating these problems. You're just making them far more annoying, especially for the crowds that are in the stadiums to sort of try and enjoy a game. Yes, I think we've all sort of got used to it now. We've scored. Right, hang on a sec. Is there going to be a VAR review? Have we got to wait? And then you get that nice little cheer if it's allowed. So that's a bit of sort of playfulness. But ultimately, has VAR improved the game? No, it hasn't. And I refute anybody to say it has. Goal line technology, great, fantastic. It works really, really well, like it does in rugby, like it does in cricket. But VAR ultimately is still run by somebody who has to make an arbitrary decision, whether they are 300 miles away in an office or sat in the centre circle with a whistle in their hand. So whilst it's human error, you're always going to get problems, aren't you? So I don't know how you resolve this issue, but by constantly tweaking the rules and bringing more rules in, all you're doing is overcomplicating the matter. That's just my opinion. There might be an answer out there, but nobody's come up with it yet. And if they haven't come up with it after so many, years, and so many bright brains of sort of thinking constantly, and I don't know where you go with it. But whether it's clear daylight or level, you still have the same problem for me.
Yeah, and there's one final thing that's now starting to really get on my nerves, and it's a rule that has been brought in, and now we're starting to see a bit of a shift with it where is it right, is it not right? Are players who are standing in front of the line of the goalkeeper, at the start it was if anybody's in line in the eyes of the goalkeeper, it's not a goal. But now we're starting to get ones where is he a little bit to the left? Can the keeper see? We'll give that one. Or is he touched? Is he not? And I think that one now starting to get in that area where that will be scrapped soon, or it will. I just think that one will probably be scrapped soon because
it's a difficult one. Because again, how on earth can you, looking from the touchline or the stands or an office, decide whether that person is has made him standing there has made any impact on that goal?
Mm-hmm.
If you score a banger from 35 yards, you've hit a screamer into the top right hand corner. Literally, two goalkeepers wouldn't save it, but there's a bloke standing in an offside position, reasonably in line. You're telling me that that's going to make an impact on that ball not going in that net? It's just a load of rubbish. And like you say, when you go back, they have to make that decision. All right, is it interfering or not? You don't need it. You just don't need it. I think it's just overcomplicating things all the time. We've had them go for us and go against us. I think the England one the other night was that was the latest one, was it? Declan Rice. And now I don't think the keeper's, whether there's a bloke standing there or not, I still don't think the keeper's getting anywhere near that. So it shouldn't have been left offside. But the rules were you got VAR. They looked at it and they decided that it impacted on the goalkeeper. I don't know. It's a load of rubbish for me.
Cool, right.
But
I'm old now. Hopefully we've sparked a bit of a discussion between you in the comment section. Finally, then we'll finish off on score predictions. I have to back us in this. I have to, and I'm gonna go for a 2-1 Villa win. I think we're gonna do it, Villa fans. It's gonna be one of those where it's a proper Unai Emery away performance, and it's going to have everything that we've seen in our previous year with Unai Emery. It's going to have blistering pace. It's going to have tactical defending. It's going to be beautiful. So 2-1 for me, Justin.
Yes, you'll be surprised to hear I'm going to back a Villa win. Ultimately, it comes down to, can they stop us scoring? I don't think they can. Can we stop them scoring? Yes, I think we probably can. So I'm going to say 2-0 Villa.
Oh, love it. Love
Same
it.
as last
right.
year.
Now, we have been not talking about Villa in the well, no, we have, but we've not been talking about active Villa. We are going through a busy period now. So there's going to be a lot of episodes, a lot of content. So show your support. And especially in December, there's going to be games here, there, and everywhere. So we're still going to have loads of content coming out. After this one, you will have your predicted lineup, tactical in-depth look at how Spurs play. Then we are going to have an opposition preview. So we've got that one as well. That's going to be a really good one. We've got the press conference. We've got the score prediction episode. That'll be out on Saturday. And then we'll have a reaction to the game on Sunday. And then we'll turn our attention to Europe. We got Europe that week then, haven't we? So I think we got Europe, yes. Yeah. Looking forward to that.
Games.
My brother's coming back from France, so we're going to the game together. So hopefully I'm going to get him on the fan cam as well. So you'll see Zach on the fan cam. So yeah, enjoy it. Enjoy this week's worth of content. Subscribe if you are new. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.